My fiancée, during this period, kept calling me every other day, said she missed me and wanted me to accompany her in Hangzhou. Since there was nothing urgent in Kyoto recently, I agreed. Hangzhou, inside a private club. Mary sat quietly across from me. It had been some time since we last met, and she had become even more charming and alluring. She swirled the red wine in her glass and took a sip. "George, can your Venus family give me the West Hangzhou billion-dollar project?" I frowned slightly. I can't remember when it started, but Mary always approaches me with an agenda. Sure enough, this time was no exception. It seems that in her eyes, all I can bring her is profit. How much affection is left? The foundation of our Venus family lies in Kyoto. Back then, the infighting within the Venus family was fierce. My parents were worried that I might be affected, so they sent me to Hangzhou starting from middle school. I attended both middle school and high school in Hangzhou. It was from that time onward. That's when I met Mary. She practically became my shadow. Wherever I went, she would be there. Of course, since she was good-looking, I didn't mind it either. She accompanied me throughout my entire youth, going to school together, playing together. During winter and summer vacations, I would take her traveling across the country. We went diving together, climbed mountains to watch the sunrise together, galloped freely on horseback across the vast grasslands together. At that time, her gaze at me was pure and clear, with a sparkle in her eyes. I could feel her deep affection for me. After graduating from high school, my father successfully took over the entire Venus group. It was at that time that the Jignis family proposed a marriage alliance between our two families. Although my father looked down on the insignificant Jignis family, he still considered my feelings and agreed to it. With the support of my Venus family, the Jignis family continued to grow and prosper. Nowadays, the Jignis family is considered a fairly prominent clan in the entire Hangshan. But ever since the marriage contract was established, Mary always had ulterior motives whenever she met me. And that remains true to this day. We had just met, and she couldn't wait to blurt it out. I knew she was anxious. Our Venus family's billion-dollar investment project in the west side of the city had already been rumored 2 months ago. Mary called me several times, repeatedly hinting that I should hand the project over to her Jignis enterprise. I just never agreed to it. First, because our Venus family has recently given Jignis Corporation several good projects, and they haven't been completed yet. Now wanting to take on the billion-dollar project in the west of the city is really overestimating their capabilities. Second, in my eyes, whether it's projects or anything else, I can offer it to you willingly, but you can't reach out and ask for it. It seems I was too good to her before, making her lose all sense of boundaries. After hearing her out, my appetite was instantly halved. Frowning, I put down my chopsticks and said calmly, "You used to say this private club's food was great, but after a few bites, I find it just average." Mary keenly sensed my displeasure with her and quickly put down her wine glass. She reached out to hold my hand and said apologetically, "George, I wasn't considerate enough. Should we go somewhere else?" "Forget it. Let's just make do." Mary called the waiter to remove all the dishes. Then she had them reorder some dishes according to my preferences. Just as we were eating quietly, Mary's phone kept ringing incessantly. She couldn't help but glance at me a few times, hesitated for a moment, but still didn't take it. Before long, the door of the private room was pushed open. I looked up slightly frowning. A young, well-mannered man had arrived uninvited. He came in holding a document. When he saw me, there was undisguised hostility in his eyes. He quickly walked up to Mary, looking anxious. "President Mary, this contract is urgent. The client has been waiting. I couldn't reach you by phone, so I rushed over to deliver it." Seeing my displeasure, Mary's expression instantly turned cold. She slammed her chopsticks on the table, turned to glare at him, and shouted angrily, "Tom, who gave you permission to come in here?" Tom was startled, never expecting Mary to react like this. He glanced at me, his expression grim, immediately putting on an innocent expression. "President Mary, as you previously instructed, important contracts like this require your personal signature. The business partner can't wait any longer. I'm sorry, President Mary, for interrupting your dinner. I'll wait outside." He hung his head and slowly turned to leave. I casually remarked, "Did I say you could go?" Hearing this, Tom froze in place. Mary's expression instantly became somewhat unnatural. This subtle change made my heart skip a beat. I couldn't help but glance at Tom a few more times. This guy has a handsome face. He definitely has the makings of a pretty boy. Tom turned to look at me. Perhaps he thought my outfit was rather plain. A hint of disdain flashed in his eyes. What I wore wasn't a famous brand, but it was haute couture, something naturally invisible to untrained eyes. "Who do you think you are? Do I need your permission to leave?" I smiled faintly without saying a word. Mary, however, turned pale with rage. "Tom, have I been too lenient with you? He is my fiancé. Apologize to him right now." Tom's face turned pale, unable to believe what he had just heard. A moment of silence passed. Though reluctant, he didn't dare to defy Mary's order. He immediately bent down and bowed to me. "I'm sorry. I didn't know you were President Mary's fiancé. It's my fault. I apologize." After apologizing, he stood there. His face still clearly showed some reluctance. After graduating from high school, I rarely visited Hangzhou. Indeed, very few people in Hangzhou know my true identity. In Tom's mind, this plainly dressed man, me, was probably just a guy living off Mary's wealth. It's only because of Mary's favor that he dares to treat me like this. I looked at Mary with amusement. "Mary, aren't you going to introduce us?" Mary gave an awkward smile, but quickly composed herself. "George, this is my new assistant. He's quite capable at his job and knows how to share my burdens, so I decided to keep him by my side." Seeing me nod without saying a word, she secretly let out a sigh of relief. Mary turned to look at Tom and scolded him angrily in a harsh tone. "What are you still standing there for? Get out now." Tom looked aggrieved, his eyes reddening. Still, he left reluctantly. I know very well that the louder Mary scolds Tom, she's actually still protecting him in her heart. Otherwise, she'd really make me angry, no matter how reluctant she is. She didn't dare to keep him by her side openly anymore. Mary was a veritable beauty CEO. Over the years, she never lacked suitors around her. Occasionally, she would tease them for fun. I've investigated several times, and she's never crossed the line. She's never done anything to betray me. So I turned a blind eye. But now, I could clearly sense something was off between her and Tom. After Tom left, Mary smiled apologetically. "George, it's my fault for not disciplining my subordinate properly. Don't be angry. I'll definitely teach him a lesson later." I lowered my head to gaze at the dishes before me, each one a feast for the senses with their vibrant colors, enticing aromas, and exquisite flavors. The last bit of my appetite vanished without a trace. Without showing any emotion, I sent a discreet message to my assistant. I asked him to look into the relationship between Mary and Tom. I really want to know how far they've progressed. I stayed at Mary's villa that night. She came out after a shower, her body exuding a faint fragrance of shower gel. She was wearing a very sexy, translucent nightgown with nothing underneath. She looked utterly enchanting and alluring. She climbed onto the bed and wrapped her arms around my neck. But I gently pushed her away. "I'm a bit tired today. Let's sleep. I won't touch her until the assistant's investigation results come in. I have a cleanliness obsession." She froze for a moment, a flash of loneliness flickering in her eyes, but quickly returned to normal. Mary kissed me on the cheek and nestled obediently in my arms, like a little kitten. She intermittently recounted amusing stories from our school days. I occasionally chimed in with a few words. And so, we drifted off to sleep without even realizing it. Woke up in the morning. Mary was still lying quietly in my arms. I gently pushed her aside and got up to wash. When I went downstairs, I saw Tom making breakfast. He heard the noise and said with a smile, his back turned to me, "Sister Mary, you're awake. Breakfast will be ready soon." When he turned and saw me, he froze completely. He blurted it out without thinking. "What are you doing here?" His tone was full of dissatisfaction and jealousy. I looked at him with a half smile. Shouldn't I be the one asking that question? I gave the aunt standing nearby a cold glance. "You let him in?" Sensing my displeasure, the aunt hurriedly explained. "Miss said if Mr. Tom Aunt Lou, didn't I tell you long ago not to let anyone else in? If you make this mistake again, you can consider yourself fired. Mary had somehow appeared behind me and sharply cut off the aunt's words. Hearing this, how could the aunt not understand the situation? Her face was filled with panic as she quickly apologized. Miss, I'm sorry. It was all my fault. I won't dare do it again. Tom stood there in a daze, looking utterly at a loss. Sister Mary, Before Tom could finish speaking, Mary's eyes darkened with gloom. She rushed to Tom in a few quick steps and slapped him without hesitation. She roared, "Get out of here right now." Tom's eyes widened in disbelief. Then he grew teary-eyed, his emotions turning to hurt. I noticed a flicker of almost imperceptible pity in Mary's eyes. Finally, Tom shot me a venomous glance before turning away in anger. Mary walked up to me, looking at me with an ingratiating expression. George, it's all my fault. I failed to properly discipline those under me, allowing them to forget their manners and overstep their bounds. I promise this won't happen again. I nodded. I quietly watched them perform without exposing them. She walked over, pressing her whole body against me, and said softly, George, I won't go anywhere today. I'll just stay with you, okay? Playing with her hair, I heartlessly refused. Mary, you've just become the CEO of Jignis Corporation. There must be a ton of work waiting for you at the company. You don't need to accompany me today. I happen to have some personal matters to attend to. Mary looked visibly displeased, but she didn't dare to go against my wishes and could only pout in agreement. After breakfast, I left. I returned to my own villa. This villa was where I lived during my school days, and I hadn't been here for a long time. Around noon, my assistant rushed over. He handed me a stack of photos, his expression grim. I flipped through them. All were pictures of Mary and Tom together. Young master, these two were taken just this morning. The assistant pulled out 2 photos from the stack and placed them in front of me. One is a photo of the two kissing in a car. The other is a photo of them entering and exiting a hotel. This morning, Mary slapped Tom across the face. Seems like she was heartbroken beyond words. I had barely stepped out when she rushed off to comfort him. Perhaps I had sensed it coming. Looking at these disgraceful photos, I didn't feel particularly surprised. It seems I've been too indulgent with her all these years. Make Mary forget who gave the Jignis family their success today. In that case, let's take it all back. Assistant Lynn, draft a contract and hand over the billion-dollar project in the West to Jignis Corporation. The assistant was stunned, unable to comprehend why I would do this. He hesitated before speaking up. Young master, weren't you planning to hand this project over to Starlight Group? I calmly replied. I'll explain it to Starlight Group myself. Just do as I say. Remember to modify the contract into a valuation adjustment mechanism. You should know how to handle it. The assistant immediately understood my intention, respectfully acknowledged, and withdrew. In the afternoon, the assistant brought over the drafted agreement. I reviewed it and was quite satisfied. I called Mary and asked her to prepare for signing the contract the next day. The next day, I went to Jignis Corporation with my assistant. We entered the Jignis building. Mary and a group of executives warmly welcomed us, sitting in the spacious conference room of Jignis Corporation. I glanced around and noticed Tom was not present. It seems Mary deliberately kept him away, knowing I don't like this person. I looked at Mary with amusement. Mary, why isn't Assistant Tom here? Mary froze, stammering. Assistant Tom went to handle other matters. My expression darkened immediately as I glared at her with displeasure. Is there anything more important than signing this billion-dollar project contract? Mary was momentarily speechless. I tossed the contract aside and shrugged. Without Assistant Tom here, this contract can't be signed. Everyone looked at each other in confusion. I don't know why I insisted on having Assistant Tom present. Mary had no choice but to rush out to call Tom in a hurry. In less than half an hour, Tom pushed open the conference room door, panting heavily. His face was grim, with none of the dismissive look he'd given me when we first met. His eyes darted around, avoiding my gaze. I understood immediately. It seems Mary has already told him my true identity. Seeing that everyone had arrived, I turned to Mary and said bluntly, "You've mentioned the West City project to me many times. The reason I haven't agreed until now is that your Jignis Corporation is too small in scale, not the ideal partner for my Venus group. But now I'm willing to give Jignis Corporation a chance, with just one condition." Mary's eyes burned with eagerness as she looked at me intently. "George, not just one request. Even 10 or 100, I'd agree without hesitation." Mary's reaction didn't surprise me. After all, if Jignis Enterprises could secure this multi-billion-dollar project, it would undoubtedly be a giant leap forward. The entire Jignis family is bound to reach new heights. Others also stare at me intently, curious about what request I would make. I looked at Tom with icy eyes and spoke coldly. "I want Assistant Tom to kneel before me." These words left everyone stunned. Mary's face instantly turned extremely grim. Tom's mind buzzed, and he was completely dumbfounded. Mary snapped back to reality, a flicker of reluctance flashing in her eyes. She looked at me with a troubled expression and said, "George." A glimmer of hope returned to Tom's eyes as he gazed at Mary. As soon as Mary opened her mouth, I interrupted indifferently, "Forget it if you're unwilling." I closed the contract and stood up to leave. Mary hurriedly grabbed hold of me. Compared to the billion-dollar contract, Tom is nothing. She gritted her teeth, a fierce look rising in her eyes. She turned to look at Tom, her eyes filled with endless coldness. Where's any trace of tenderness left? Tom kneeled down before me. At this moment, all eyes were fixed on him. Tom was utterly devastated. He had been with Mary for quite some time and knew her character well. If he dared to defy Mary's wishes now and risk losing the billion-dollar deal, Mary would never let him off the hook. He couldn't even imagine the consequences he would face. At this thought, Tom gritted his teeth and knelt before me in front of everyone. His eyes were filled with resentment and humiliation. The entire room was eerily silent. No one dared to make sound. I turned to Mary and asked calmly, "Mary, tell me why I did this?" Mary's eyes quickly showed panic, but she soon regained her composure. She smiled and said, "George, I know you're testing the sincerity of us at Jignis. Don't worry, I've said I'll definitely meet your demands." I was satisfied with her answer and pushed the contract on the table toward her. "Sign it." Mary carefully reviewed the contract, her expression growing increasingly grave. She suddenly looked up at me. "George, how could this be a betting contract? Of course, it's to send you to hell." I sighed and said, "Mary, you know how many projects I've given to Jignis over the years. My practice of using public resources for private gain has long displeased the board. This 100 billion order wasn't originally intended for Jignis, but I insisted on giving it to you. This betting contract was a unanimous decision by the board. Of course, with me backing you up, what do you have to worry about?" Hearing this, Mary's expression softened considerably. After all, whenever there was an issue with Jignis's project in the past, wasn't it always me who cleaned up the mess for her? Thinking of this, Mary had no reason to doubt him. Signed the name decisively. I had just stepped out of the Jignis building when I received a call from Nicole, CEO of Starlight Group in Hangsheng. I shook my head with a smile. Hangsheng was indeed still Starlight's territory. I had just signed a contract when she immediately got wind of it. At Starlight Manor, Nicole turned her head away with a cold expression, staring blankly at the scenery outside the window, deliberately ignoring me. I couldn't help but shake my head with a bitter smile. In my memories, Nicole had always been obedient to me. "This is the first time you've gotten angry with me." I patiently explained, which was rare for me. "Nicole, I know the West City billion-dollar project was something I promised you long ago. Making this last-minute decision to sign the contract with Jignis Corporation was my fault, but..." Before I could finish, Nicole turned her head and stared at me with wide eyes. Her eyes were slightly reddened. "Brother George, even if you asked me to hand over all the projects of the Starlight family to the Jignis family, not just a billion-dollar project, I would never be angry with you." She paused, her eyes still red, and continued, "What makes me angry is why you didn't tell me beforehand. Don't you trust me at all?" I rarely felt my old face flush with a hint of shame. At the time, I had planned to discuss it in detail with Nicole afterward. Who would have thought Nicole's sources were so well informed? No sooner had I stepped out of the Jignis building than her call came through first. It seems there must be Nicole's informants among the higher-ups at Jignis. I couldn't help but glance at Nicole a few more times. Suddenly, I realized that Nicole has indeed grown rapidly over these past 2 years. She's no longer that fragile little girl who needed my protection. Nicole is the heiress of the Starlight family. However, she got lost as a child and grew up in an orphanage. It wasn't until she was about to enter high school that the Starlight family found and brought her back. But by then, the Starlight family had already showered almost all their affection on their adopted daughter, Stellar. Stella took advantage of the Starlight family's favor to act recklessly. At school, she led a group of people to bully Nicole every day. Later, I couldn't stand it anymore and stepped forward to help her. Our Venus family's roots are not in Hangzhou. But Stellar and his clique of rich second-generation kids were genuine local bullies. I've lost count of how many fights I've gotten into for Nicole. Eventually, those spoiled rich kids lost all their fight after I beat them up repeatedly. Seeing Nicole sticking with me every day, they never dared to bother her again. I still sent a large collection of videos showing Stellar bullying Nicole at school to the head of the Starlight family. Only then did Stellar gradually fall out of favor, and Nicole slowly began to receive more attention. Later, after Nicole graduated from university, she joined the Starlight Group. It was also due to my behind-the-scenes support, driven by strategic interests, that she eventually rose to the position of CEO of the Starlight Group. Back in high school, Mary and I got engaged after graduation. It said that Nicole fell seriously ill and took a long time to recover. But back then in high school, Nicole was dark-skinned and skinny, a real ugly duckling. At the time, I only helped her out of pity. I just couldn't bear to watch anymore. I couldn't help but marvel at the fair-skinned and beautiful Nicole before me. Truly, a girl changes 18 times before reaching womanhood. The ugly duckling from back then has long since transformed into a white swan. Her figure and looks are at least a notch above Mary's. Nicole blushed instantly under my intense gaze. She lowered her head, her voice unconsciously softening. "I'm talking serious business with you. Why do you keep staring at me?" I quickly snapped out of it, clearing my throat lightly to mask my embarrassment. I stopped beating around the bush and sighed as I spoke. "Nicole, the truth is Mary and I signed a valuation adjustment agreement. Starting tomorrow, your Starlight Group should also terminate the collaboration with Jignis." Nicole looked up abruptly upon hearing this. Her eyes filled with disbelief. "Are you trying to completely destroy the Jignis family?" I remained silent, my expression growing increasingly grim. I quietly pulled out a thick stack of photos and handed them to Nicole. "Mary has been unfaithful. The Jignis family only achieved its current status because of me. Since that's the case, what I've given must be repaid double. You know I can't tolerate any betrayal." Nicole flipped through the photos, her eyes revealing a gaze even fiercer than mine. "Understand, Brother George. I'll make sure she pays the price." For the next period of time, everyone sensed that Jignis was about to collapse. First, the Starlight Group announced the termination of all cooperation with Jignis Enterprises. The Venus Group then announced the termination of all cooperation with Jignis Enterprises except for the West City billion-dollar project. 70% of Jignis's business comes from these two major groups. The release of this news has caused widespread panic within Jignis. Other partners, naturally not fools, have also terminated their collaborations with Jignis one after another. Debt collectors have completely surrounded the entire Jignis building, leaving no room to move. Jignis, who was originally reveling in the success of securing a multi-billion-dollar project. Within just a few days, they were hit with a devastating blow. Suddenly, disaster struck. Yet, the very same contract for the multi-billion-dollar project in the western part of the city, which had brought Jignis endless glory, became their death warrant. Their lives now hang by my whim. During this period, Mary kept calling me frantically, but I didn't answer a single call. I simply turned off my phone. Spent some quality time traveling with Nicole. Half a month later, I finally returned to my villa in Hangzhou. About 20 minutes later, I heard a knock at the door. The assistant came in to report. "Young master, it's Miss Mary. Let her wait outside. I've been exhausted these past few days. I'm going to catch up on some sleep first." With that, I ignored her, went upstairs, took a shower, and went straight to bed. To prevent Jignis from getting desperate and doing something rash, I specifically increased security. There was no need to worry about anyone disturbing my sweet dreams either. I woke up the next morning. Outside the window was damp. It seemed it had rained heavily all night. By then, the rain had stopped. After washing up, I quietly finished my breakfast. The assistant stepped forward to report, "Young master, last night when you refused to see Miss Mary, she knelt outside and is still kneeling there now." I wiped my mouth with a handkerchief and said indifferently, "I see." I tossed the handkerchief aside and stood up. "It's time to go see my dear fiancée." Mary was completely drenched. Her disheveled long hair clung to her ghastly pale face. Her lips were purple, and she looked utterly devastated. There wasn't a trace left of the haughty demeanor she once had as the heiress of Jignis. Her eyes, which had been unfocused, immediately regained a glimmer of light when she saw me. She spoke cautiously. "George, did I do something wrong to upset you?" I neither confirmed nor denied it, casually replying, "Then tell me, what exactly did you do to upset me? I didn't manage my subordinates well recently, and they offended you. That was my fault." My eyes turned cold. "Mary, do you really think I'm such a petty person in your eyes? Do you think I'd go to war over every random nobody who dares to jump around in front of me?" Mary's face visibly paled with panic. "No, that's not it. George, I know you must have heard some rumors. I admit I've been spending more time with my assistant lately. But please believe me, there's nothing between us. I would never betray you. I'll fire Tom as soon as I get back. You know me, the only one I love is you." She spoke with growing agitation. She crawled toward me on her knees, clutching at my sleeve. "George, it's my fault. I crossed the line. Please, give me another chance. I really know I was wrong." I flung her hand away. Looking down at her from above, my tone grew increasingly icy. "Mary, your entire Jignis family is about to be ruined. Even now, you still can't speak a single word of truth, can you?" I was gradually losing my patience. I threw a stack of photos right at her face. "Mary, is this what you meant by nothing happened between you two? Is this what you kept swearing, that you loved only me? You make me sick." Mary looked at the photos of her and Tom, her face instantly turning pale. Her whole body trembled uncontrollably, her eyes gradually filling with terror and despair. She thought she had hidden it well. But how can there be a wall in this world that doesn't let the wind through? Mary's emotions finally collapsed. She kept crying and kowtowing as she spoke. "George, I was wrong. It was me. I was blinded by greed. I shouldn't have been with Tom. Please spare the Jignis family. Spare me." She knelt on the ground, then suddenly crawled over and clutched the hem of my pants with both hands. "George, I know. I'm sorry, but I truly love you, Tom, and I just had a momentary lapse of judgment. Please give me one more chance." I crouched down, gripping her chin forcefully, forcing her to look up. I looked at her mockingly. "Is that so? Given our years of affection, of course, I'll give you a chance. But how exactly do you plan to make me forgive you?" Mary's eyes immediately lit up with hope. I knew she was an intelligent woman. I released her chin and stood up, gazing at her calmly. She lowered her head in contemplation for a moment, and when she looked up again, there was a trace of ruthlessness in her eyes. "I will definitely satisfy you, George." Mary had just left not long ago. The head of the Jignis family called. During this period, the head of the Jignis family had called me several times. I absolutely must go to his place for a meal. I flatly refused every time. I know exactly what he's scheming. Looking at the caller ID, I hesitated but finally answered the call. The phone call was met with the hearty laughter of the Jignis family patriarch. The old man probably wants to skin me alive right now, yet he still has to pretend to be happy when calling me. Must be quite a struggle for him. "George, I must admit I've spoiled Mary terribly over these years. Our Jignis family has paid a heavy price for this too. Please calm your anger. So, Uncle has prepared a generous gift for you as an apology. With that, she hung up the phone. I sat on the sofa, utterly bewildered. The assistant came in to announce that Mary's younger sister, Danica, was paying a visit. Only then did I realize. Back then, Mary pestered me every day. It was probably this old fox's doing. Now seeing her eldest daughter had messed things up, immediately arranged for the younger daughter to come up as a replacement. I've seen shameless people, but few as shameless as him. He's quite a character. Danica was wearing a floral light yellow dress. The hemline falls just at the knee, revealing a pair of slender, fair calves. Her looks are no less than Mary's, especially her pair of seductive fox-like eyes. Even more captivating. Brother George, I came to apologize on behalf of my sister. I raised an eyebrow and looked at her with interest. Apologize? I chuckled lightly. Why should you apologize for what your sister did wrong? Danica bit her lip, looked up, and gazed at me pitifully. Brother George, I know my sister has done some things that wronged you. But she is her, and I am me. I am willing to make up for my sister. Make up. I waved my hand, signaling her to sit beside me. She carried a faint fragrance of shower gel. It seemed she had taken a bath before coming. My fingers gently traced across her fair cheeks. Her eyes dodged, and her hands tightly clutched the hem of her skirt, appearing very nervous. Then, how do you plan to make up for it? Danica's face flushed red with embarrassment as she lowered her head and spoke in a barely audible voice. I'm willing to do anything to make amends, as long as Brother George can forgive my sister and spare my Jignis family. Her response was met with a resounding slap. Her fair cheeks visibly swelled with redness, and traces of blood seeped from the corners of her mouth. Danica was completely stunned by the blow. I narrowed my eyes and stared at her. What do you think you are? Just an illegitimate daughter who can't even be shown in public. Danica snapped back to reality and turned to look at me, her eyes filled with humiliation. There wasn't a trace of the pitiful demeanor she had just shown. Amid her startled cry, I grabbed her hair and yanked her toward me. You and your sister don't share the same mother. I can understand your desire to fight for power and profit. You used such despicable means to scheme against your sister, and in doing so, you've also disgraced the face of our Venus family. Brother George, what are you talking about? I don't understand. Danica hurriedly defended herself, but her eyes were flustered, not daring to meet my gaze. Dare you say Tom wasn't the one you brought here? Brother George, you've misunderstood. How could I possibly do such a thing? Sisters matter? I just found out about it too. I've lost all interest in continuing to play along with her. Assistant Lynn, send this illegitimate daughter and the documents you've investigated back to Mary together. The assistant acknowledged and dragged Danica out with 2 bodyguards. Brother George, I was wrong. Please spare me. I'll never dare to do it again. Nicole and I have been traveling together for so many days. The assistant had already thoroughly investigated all of Tom's information. Tom was brought in by Danica. Danica kept praising Tom in front of Mary. It was also thanks to Danica's help. Tom could effortlessly know all of Mary's preferences and track her activities. It was precisely because of Danica's instigation and assistance. Tom was able to quickly stand out among the many social climbers and successfully win Mary's heart. In the end, things spiraled out of control. I had planned to settle the score with Danica afterward. Little did I expect her to come knocking on my door herself. She's truly reaping what she sowed. Seeing Tom and Danica again, it was in Mary's basement. Both of them were covered in blood and gore, reeking of a foul stench. Danica lay on the ground, lifeless or not. Tom was trembling in the corner. His eyes were filled with fear and unease. Where was the confidence and vigor he had when I first met him? When he saw me, he immediately knelt down. Like a dog, he crawled to my feet, his face full of pleading. George, I was wrong. I'll never dare again, please. Spare me. As he spoke, he began kowtowing repeatedly the thud-thud sounds echoing endlessly through the basement. I said with a laugh, "Tom, I'm a law-abiding citizen. Whether you're spared depends entirely on President Mary's decision. It has nothing to do with me." Only then did Tom turn a cow-out to Mary. "Mary, please, spare me. It was all Danika's idea. Somehow, these words enraged Mary. I suppose she had always believed Tom was sincere with her. Little did she know, it was all a scheme orchestrated by Tom and Danika together. Is this a blow to your self-esteem? Or are you feeling betrayed and furious? Perhaps both. Mary's face instantly contorted. The next moment, she grabbed a wooden stick nearby and smashed it hard onto Tom's forehead. Tom collapsed straight to the ground, his forehead covered in blood. But that wasn't enough. Mary rushed over to Tom in just a few steps. She raised her high heels and stomped down forcefully on his crotch. "Ah!" Tom let out a piercing scream. He then gasped for air, his face completely contorted in pain. I watched as blood seeped from Tom's crotch. The smell in the basement became even more unbearable. I covered my nose, no longer interested in staying any longer. I walked out of the basement with my assistant. Mary followed closely behind. "George, I was framed, set up by these two bitches. I promise I'll never do anything to hurt you again. I know I was wrong. I truly love only you. Please, forgive me just this once. I swear I'll never do it again." I turned and looked at her coldly. "Mary, after all these years, you should understand me. I've always had a cleanliness obsession. I don't use things that are dirty." Mary froze instantly, standing motionless in place. I turned to my assistant and said, "Assistant Lynn, you saw what just happened. Call the police." Assistant Lynn nodded and turned away to make the call. Mary completely lost her mind and lunged at me, trying to tear me apart. But she was firmly restrained by the bodyguards I had brought. Her eyes were bloodshot, as if she wanted to pounce and bite me. She screamed with heart-wrenching fury, "George, you're inhuman. You'll die a horrible death. George, I'll kill you." Seeing that I was about to leave, she panicked completely and began pleading desperately again. "George, please, spare me. I am your fiancée. You can't treat me like this." I didn't look back at her again. Under the protection of security personnel, I walked straight toward the car. The car slowly drove out of this villa area. Mary's frantic curses and pleas gradually faded behind me. Jignis Corporation is beyond saving. The gamble agreement takes effect. Jignis will face five-fold compensation. The $50 billion compensation amount completely crushed Jignis into the dust. They'll never recover in this lifetime. All of Jignis's assets have been seized by my Venus Group. Let them spend the rest of their lives repaying the remaining debts. Later, Nicole and I held a grand wedding. She bore me a pair of children. Our life after marriage was always happy. On my youngest son's 5th birthday. It happened to be the day Mary was released from prison. Unexpectedly, Tom sought out Mary that very day and stabbed her to death. Tom didn't flee and was apprehended on the spot by the arriving police. I happened to come across this news while scrolling through my phone, but my heart remained completely unmoved and I quickly swiped away.